Set 2 bowls of tomato soup on the table. Into one, stir a teaspoon of dried basil that's been simmering for 15 minutes. Into the other, scatter a handful of freshly torn basil leaves just before serving. Take a spoonful from each. They're unmistakably related, yet they don't taste the same. One is warm and rounded, the other bright and almost alive. So which version is better? Surprisingly, that's the wrong question. Fresh and dried herbs aren't competitors, they're completely different ingredients. We often talk about herbs as if drying simply removes water. But drying quietly rewrites an herb's personality. As moisture leaves the leaves, some aromatic compounds disappear, others become more concentrated, and entirely new flavor balances emerge. What survives the drying process determines whether an herb becomes earthy, floral, minty, woody, or sweet. Pick up a sprig of fresh parsley and rub it between your fingers. The aroma arrives instantly, green, crisp, almost like spring captured in a leaf. Now smell dried parsley. The difference isn't subtle. It's gentler and less expressive. That's because many of the fragile compounds responsible for parsley's fresh character don't survive drying very well. Some herbs lose a little of themselves. Others transform into something equally useful. Oregano tells a completely different story. Fresh oregano can taste surprisingly assertive, even slightly bitter. Dry it, however, and its flavor becomes deeper, warmer, and more balanced. That's one reason dried oregano became a cornerstone of many Mediterranean dishes, especially slow-cooked sauces, roasted vegetables, pizzas, and grilled meats. In this case, drying doesn't weaken the herb, it refines it. The same is true for thyme, rosemary, bay leaves, and sage. These hardy herbs contain sturdy essential oils that hold up remarkably well over time. Slow cooking gives those oils plenty of opportunity to dissolve into sauces, soups, braises, and stews. Their flavors don't need to shout immediately, they're designed to unfold gradually. Tender herbs play by different rules. Basil, cilantro, dill, mint, and chives rely on delicate aromatic molecules that disappear quickly with heat and drying. That's why recipes often ask you to scatter them over a finished dish rather than cook them for long periods. Add them too early, and much of what makes them special quietly fades away. Imagine baking a loaf of focaccia. Mix dried rosemary into the dough before it goes into the oven, and the herb slowly perfumes the bread from within. Now sprinkle fresh rosemary over the top after baking. Both are delicious, but they create completely different experiences. One becomes part of the bread. The other introduces itself with every bite. Professional chefs rarely ask whether fresh herbs are better than dried ones. They ask a more useful question: what role should this herb play? Should it quietly build the background of the dish, or should it provide the final burst of aroma just before serving? Once you think that way, choosing between fresh and dried becomes much easier. Timing may be even more important than the herb itself. Dried herbs appreciate patience. Given 20 or 30 minutes, they slowly release their oils into the cooking liquid. Fresh herbs often prefer the opposite. Added at the end, they preserve the brightness that long cooking would otherwise erase. Storage changes the equation again. Fresh herbs are living plants that continue to lose moisture after harvest. Some, like parsley and cilantro, last longer standing in a glass of water inside the refrigerator. Others, including rosemary and thyme, prefer to stay dry. Dried herbs have different enemies: light, air, moisture, and heat. Store them well, and they'll reward you for months. Here's a simple experiment. Make a basic tomato sauce and divide it into 2 pans. Simmer one with dried oregano from the beginning. Finish the other with fresh oregano at the very end. Taste them side by side. Neither is wrong. They simply tell 2 different stories about the same herb. One common guideline says to use 3 times as much fresh herb as dried. That's because fresh herbs contain far more water, making their flavors less concentrated. It's a useful starting point, but not a law. Some herbs lose much more flavor than others during drying, while some become surprisingly concentrated. Your own taste should always have the final vote. Around the world, cuisines instinctively understand this balance. French bouquet garni slowly infuses stocks with hardy herbs. Italian pasta often finishes with fresh basil. Mexican salsa comes alive with fresh cilantro. Persian cooking celebrates generous handfuls of fresh herbs at the table. Culture has shaped technique, but the science underneath remains the same. Perhaps the biggest mistake isn't choosing dried herbs. It's forgetting they're still ingredients with a lifespan. Open a jar that's been hiding in the back of a cabinet for 5 years, and you'll probably notice almost nothing. If an herb barely has an aroma in the jar, it won't suddenly find one in the pan. Fresh herbs bring brightness. Dried herbs bring depth. One isn't replacing the other, they're solving different problems. The best cooks know when to let herbs quietly shape a dish over time and when to let them make a memorable entrance at the very end. The next time you reach for a jar or a handful of leaves, don't ask which is better. Ask what kind of flavor you want to create. That's the question that turns ingredients into great cooking.